You said something about there's a program called the Immaculate Constellation. You quoted saying it's an unacknowledged special access program that your government says does not exist. Journalist Michael Schellenberger, who was their great journalist, says a source warned that simply printing the name Immaculate Constellation could trigger government surveillance of me under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or whoever publishes it. What do you know so far about Immaculate Constellation? That's number one. And how can it, like, for people that don't understand how the government works, how can you as a member of Congress, how can you not know about a program that the US government is running?
Well, if you don't know the name of the program, you can't ask about it when you're in the SCIF. I've been in the SCIF. I've been in a classified setting, but if you don't know the name of the classified program, you don't know what questions to ask. And so they'll just tell you, nothing exists. There's no documentation, nothing, because you're not asking the right question. And so when the names of these programs are hidden from us, we don't know how to get the information. We don't know when we're looking into the Intel budget or the DoD Pentagon budget. We don't know what the programs are on the line items for the budget either. And so if you don't have that information, you can't verify that it exists. And so it's so compartmentalized. And I'm grateful for the Michael Schellenbergers of the world, the Jeremy Corbells of the world, the George Knapps of the world, those that are John Greenwald's another one. There are these reporters and journalists and podcasters that are out there that are trying to sift through the information and provide it to the American people, because they're not telling Congress, and they're certainly not telling the rest of the population.
So now that you know about the term Immaculate Constellation, are you allowed to ask about it in a SCIF?
We can, but I would imagine when we do, and we'll probably go into a SCIF and be able to ask questions in the future, and I would hope that we're going to be able to do that again. We've done it before. But the problem is, it's probably already got a new name. And because we don't know the name, we don't know what program to ask for. Does that make sense?
That is so weird. That is so that's how it works in the world's biggest democracy. But when you talked about the Arrow program, that's part of I think it's part of the Immaculate Constellation program. There's just so many terms I've lost track.
Yeah.
And just for anyone listening, essentially it's a program that that investigates UAPs and non-human life here, and that's all we know about it. We just don't know anything else. All we know is that it investigates UAPs, and I think the stance of the Immaculate Constellation also, does it have any stance? Is there any comments at all on where they stand?
None.
All we know is that this is a program,
and they're in denial. I mean, the government says it doesn't exist.
Oh, they're still saying okay. So you can't ask how much is being spent on. But can the government tell you that?
Yes.
Or would they say something?
Well, the amount. So I know how much is spent on Arrow,
okay.
and I know how much they're requesting for this fiscal year. I'm not allowed to share that information because the amount of money is classified. How stupid is that?
The Arrow program did acknowledge the existence of the Kona Blue program. I don't know what that is anymore. Intended to reverse engineer any recovered UAP technology, but noted that the program never went into effect because no such technology was ever recovered. I understand. So, like, hey, we have this program. We're meant to investigate UAPs, but there was no extraterrestrial equipment or ships or UAPs that were spotted, that were found here in the US. So therefore the program did not yield any results. But that kind of contradicts the information you have, because you know how much was spent on there, which you cannot share, which I assume was an amount, because you said it's a large amount. Exactly, which means there must have been something there. Otherwise, what's that amount going towards?
And then the other thing is, too, what they've done to whistleblowers. What they've done to discredit people who've come forward, whether it's Bob Lazar, I learned about him a couple weeks ago. You know, they said he didn't work at that facility, yet his name was on a manifest for working at that facility. You look at David Grush, right? Here's a guy that they said was lying under oath, and his testimony was not credible. If he wasn't credible, why did they go to such great lengths to expose and violate HIPAA and share his medical records with the world in media stories? That's what they did to him. So if he's not credible, why go to such lengths to threaten him and discredit him publicly? I mean, it just doesn't, like, I'm not a mathematician. It doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up to me.
There was a quote you said in the hearing. If I say, you've got some great snippets. If I say Immaculate Constellation, I'll be on some list. What is that list? Who controls that list? How and why? So obviously these are questions you're asking.
Yeah, supposedly it's like deep state kind of stuff. And if you say it, you're going to be on some list. They'll get a FISA warrant. They'll spy on you. I don't know if that's the case.
But you can't get a FISA warrant on you, or they can technically.
That they can't. They could technically. That's what.
And you would not know about it. And that's a warrant essentially that allows them to spy on you.
Yeah, and I don't support warrantless spying on American citizens. I mean, that's the libertarian in me. But we know that it happens, and it's happened a lot in this country. And I hope with the new administration will address warrantless wiretapping, warrantless spying on American citizens. I hope that gets addressed in the new administration too.
So, talking about the FISA warrant, how does that work? Who approves it? What court approves it? And how can you not even find out about it? I'm trying to understand how the system works.
The FISA court, one of our 3-letter agencies can go to a FISA court and say, we have this information, and
all done in stealth.
Yeah, we need to pull their metadata, pull their records, spy on them. It was created in post 9/11 to prevent terrorism from happening. But what we know now, what we didn't know then, is that opening up this Pandora's box means that citizens of the United States, basic civil rights are being violated because of the data that they're collecting on people who are innocent, haven't done any wrongdoing, that are being spied on by the government.
So walking into the hearings, how much knowledge before the hearings, before you started researching, etc., preparing for the hearings, how much knowledge did you have about the topic then?
Very little. And in fact, we had a UAP hearing last year with David Grush and 2 other former military service members.
You were in those hearings as well?
I was in those hearings as well. And I didn't know a whole lot about the topic. I wasn't briefed on it. But I'm just a normal human. I'm just like a regular person who has questions. And I asked about the pilots, like who was flying the craft, were the bodies of the dead pilots collected, retrieved? And David Grush said that they were. And I was like, well, what was this? And he used the term non-human biologics. So this is the first time I'd ever heard this terminology before, didn't know what it was. Non-human biologics. And so, since that time, I've tried to educate myself on the topic, and I hosted my own hearing about it this year. I think it would be good to have at least one hearing a year on the subject and try to get more information. The U.S. Senate is going to have a hearing in December on the topic of UAPs, and we've heard from a number of senators like Marco Rubio and others who've been briefed at, I think, even a higher level than U.S. House members.
The Gang of 8, I think it's called.
Right. They have even more information than we do. And so I will be very interested. I will be sitting on the edge of my seat watching the Senate hearing, because for me it's about transparency, it's about accountability, and if there's nothing there, why are we being lied to? And I think that's my biggest issue right now. And then the second part, of course, is the national security component.
Is it aliens visiting us?
But are we learning from this technology? Do we have it? Does China have it? Does Russia, Iran? That is very concerning to me as someone who's on the House Armed Services Committee. I want to make sure our adversaries, if there is technology out there, that they're not reverse engineering it, that we have the capability to do it, that we're winning the arms race if one so exists.